have to. You can just listen into the conversation, but gosh, there's so much of an impact that coronavirus has been having on our lives on a daily basis here.
So I think that, like as a state, as a state of Nebraska, I think we're doing a great job um, keeping things like local and state-wise as well, because obviously there's tons of national news organizations that are always putting out national news, but I feel like a lot of people really need and really feed off of that more local and that more tight-knit information. So I think as a state, we've done a great job of making sure that we're prioritizing that information that will kind of appeal to us as a state.
I also feel like the coverage has been pretty good. I agree with Tanner's point that the human interest stories are really important because there are so many cases that it's really easy for these statistics to just feel like numbers instead of realizing that they're actual people with actual lives that are being affected. So I would even like to see more of that in the news coverage locally, like more interviews with their families and with the people who are like getting over coronavirus, because I feel like that kind of contextualizes and humanizes what's going on right now.
Where can us, as TV reporters, as print reporters, as radio people in Nebraska, improve? What stories are we dropping the ball on? What can we do a better job on as upcoming journalists? What do you guys think?
I guess I'll go. Obviously, like covering numbers and the of like infections and deaths is also like a big number that we like to cover. But a number that I've seen, at least not I used to not see it a lot. Now I'm starting to a little bit more. But I'd like to see it more is the amount of recoveries, because I really think that attributes the work that medical professionals are putting in every day, whether they be nurses and doctors at hospitals or like epidemiologists who are working day in and day out to try and try and understand the virus and develop a vaccine potentially as soon as possible. So seeing those recovered cases, I also think plays into the idea of giving people hope. But at the same time, you have to kind of temper expectations, be like, yeah, lots of people are recovering, but it's still going to be a touch and go process and it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, I agree with Tanner. And I have noticed that on some graphics that the state of Nebraska is not counting recoveries. I think I've seen that somewhere that it's not, that's not going into their numbers. But I would like to know, maybe even like, say the recoveries aren't being counted. I would really like to know why, because I know some states are doing it, some places are doing it. So if Nebraska's not doing it, I would like to know the answers behind that. And that is something I haven't been able to find. So I think that would be a really interesting thing to learn about. And I think that's an important thing to learn about.
Have you guys enjoyed the governor's daily press conferences as journalism students? And as journalists, do you think it's informative to have the governors of both Nebraska and Iowa talking every day? Do you think it's too many press conferences, too littles? What are your thoughts just on hearing Governor Ricketts every single day?
For me, I think it's really good because there's so much changing and this is all new to everybody, and there's so many developments in the news that it's good to have these press conferences every day that we can hear what's new and what's going on. So I think it's good to keep those every day.
I don't live in Nebraska. I live in Iowa. So yeah, I'm watching the ones from Governor Reynolds, and I think it's important for basically all governors to keep their citizens updated, as long as it's every day. I understand it has to be every day, but at the same time, I kind of get the feeling that they might be putting more focus into this rather than finding solutions and figuring out what's best for the citizens of their states. But obviously, keeping people informed and hearing it from such an official source is important for a lot of people.
How are you guys consuming the news? Is it on Twitter? Is it on Facebook? Is it on apps?
I like to use Google News, where it kind of congregates all of the different news sources into one place, so you get all these different sources of information. It's not biased in one way or the other. I like to scroll through that and just read what's new and what's popular. So that way.
And I do kind of look at the broadcast news at 6 o'clock sometimes with my family. I try to get like a good variation between print and broadcast, because I think that's important to kind of see how different news stations handle the issues at hand.
I find myself using Twitter a lot more, especially a lot more than I used to, just because you get to see various takes on things going on. There's a lot of articles written every day about things that government officials are saying, about things that scientists are saying. So yeah, I think the Twitter stream is a very useful way for me to see subjects that are being discussed and new breaking news.
And the thing with Twitter too is that like it's almost instant. So like with news articles, it takes time to write, time to edit, time to post. But with Twitter, it's pretty much instantly. Whoever's the news anchor or whoever's working on their reports, whatever, can send that out instantly. You get your news instantly, faster than just reading the news from the newspapers. But
like now that I'm home, I live in Alabama, and like when I was off like in Nebraska at school, I'd like never had time to watch TV throughout the day, and like I'm gonna be honest with you, like I never once watched the Nebraska local news just because I was always so busy.
Mm-hmm.
But now that like I'm home, my mom and I every single day we watch like the governor press conferences or even like the national press conferences like the president's been doing. And I do get some of my news from Twitter, but most of mine's from broadcasts from TV.
I'm from Milwaukee, so I'd never really watched the local news down there in Lincoln. But when I came back here, almost every night we're watching, and with this class I'm paying much more attention to how they're doing it, but I'm starting to notice like different things about how they're covering it. Like you were saying, everything's moving back to being at home, and just the way that I'm getting information is through that, and then pop-up notifications through Google. Twitter is a big one. Instagram is another one, and just I don't know, hearing from word of mouth from a lot of different places, not really being closed and being open to hearing from anywhere that you can.
A lot of people right now say that the news is depressing, and that's one of the biggest complaints we have, is that they don't want to watch the news or read the news because it's all bad news. As journalism students, what do you think should be the balance between reporting on facts, which right now tend to be depressing, and also bringing positive stories to the viewer, reader, or consumer?
Kind of as Tanner said earlier, I think part of it is showing those recoveries, showing those high moments, because there are a lot of, I mean, this is a very weird time, very, very weird. But there are so many interesting ways that people are innovating or people are coming together as communities to kind of raise the spirits of the community's members. So I think focusing on stories like that without lessening the significance of these times, because this is, of course, like this, it is a different time going on right now, and we can't operate as normal, and it wouldn't be safe for us to show stories that are minimizing the effect of the coronavirus. But at the same time, I think you can find that balance of presenting people with the facts, keeping people safe while still kind of showing how communities have come together in the more positive aspects.
I'm over here in Georgia. The news broadcast I've seen every day has been a little bit more, like you said, on the depressing side, because there's constant facts being thrown out. But the one thing I've seen how they balance it, which I think is probably one of the best ways, is that there's more of a focus on the individual aspect of it and how families are staying strong, or how workers are staying strong, and things like that. So I think by interweaving those personal stories, like they've done here in Georgia, into the broadcast as much as they can, I think that's probably the best balance that we could have in terms of these. Because yeah, in Georgia, things have been really scary, because there's been lots of coverage on what's been happening here since we are already reopened mostly. So
During these tough times, it's been a month and a half now. Have there been any stories or reporting that has caught your eye as being a wow story, just great reporting, a nice story through such a difficult time?
Here local in Lincoln, where Iron Brush Tattoo, they donated most of their supplies of PPE, their masks, to the local hospitals. I've seen a lot of stories about these local businesses donating what they have, since most of them are closed down, that they don't have a use for them right now. So they've been donating them to the local hospitals, and I always like those stories. So
here in Alabama, at one of the local nursing homes, this man's wife has like terrible Alzheimer's, and so obviously like with the whole social distancing, he's not allowed to go and see her. And so every day he like stands at her room window and like sings her favorite songs to her, just to like keep him in her thoughts, so like she doesn't completely forget him. So that's been happy to see that he's been going to see her.
These stories that you guys are mentioning, what is it about these stories that make you feel good inside during this time? Is there a specific trait to these stories that make you guys feel better about the world and feel better about these stories?
For me, like, it portrays a lot of hope that like better days are coming, and that hopefully like this all won't, like, it won't forever be like this. Like, I know that some colleges around the country have been posting like we are expected to go back to school in the fall, and that's given me a lot of hope. So optimism.
It's more of like seeing that there are still good people and good things happening in the world, even with all this going on. Before you see good stories happening, but you wouldn't see them as much as you do now with all this going on. So it's good to see that these companies are going out of their way to help when they can.
For me, I live out in Colorado, and one thing that's unique going on here is that people have been howling every day at 8 o'clock to thank the nurses and doctors. I think that just brings, like, for me, just a cool sense of community of doing something that seems odd at first. Like, I thought it was pretty weird that people are howling to thank nurses and doctors, but it's spread throughout Colorado. So I like that sense of people coming closer together during these tough times.
For internships and summer jobs, I mean, a lot of you guys want to work part-time jobs, make a little money, do here and there, maybe just get an internship or volunteer. Are you guys worried at all?
Actually, through sort of unfortunate circumstances, I have gotten a job this summer out of this because I live in a kind of a small community, but we do have a local paper. But unfortunately, one of the main staff writers for that paper is going through cancer treatment right now. So obviously she doesn't want to be going around talking to a lot of people since she has a sort of a delicate immune system at this time. So they put an ad in the paper for a temporary staff writer, and I got the position. So through unfortunate circumstances, I was able to get a job. But obviously, I'll be glad when she's able to get back on her feet and do her job again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of had something. This kind of the same thing happened to me where coronavirus kind of turned into an opportunity for me. Where once I came home, I live in Western Nebraska, a small town in Western Nebraska, and I kind of started talking to some local business owners, and now over the summer I will be running social media and doing some marketing stuff for 2 different businesses, and I'm going to see if it'll work out for more. But especially because of coronavirus, a lot of small businesses have taken a hit, so they kind of want that boost. They want that extra social media marketing. So that's kind of turned into an opportunity for me. But at the same time, I did lose an internship that I had for the spring semester. It had to be cut short, so I kind of lost that as well.
I was fortunate enough to take a job in New York over the summer, and considering that New York is one of the hardest hit places right now and there's a lot going on there, there's a lot of uncertainty around that, and whether I know that if I'm going to go there and it's going to still happen, because this job that I took is a summer camp for kids, so there's tons of kids involved, there's lots of potential for bad things to happen, so it's up in the air right now whether this is still going to go through, so I'm just hoping for the best right now.
How much more time, if you have, do you think you're paying attention to news?
I probably spend like a good hour a day just reading through not just coronavirus news, but just news in general. And I didn't do that as much like at the beginning of like last year or whatever. But so this happened. I mean, it's helped a lot.
I'm definitely more often like reading and researching or searching things that I see on Twitter, like, oh, what does this mean? What is when the governor or the president said this, what is this actually going to entail? And yeah, just basically looking for more takes and reporting from journalists.
A quick show of hands. How many of you would say you've been watching more news over the past 2 months? And how many would say they're watching as much or less news over the past 2 months? And how many would say that based on what you've seen in terms of the media's coverage of coronavirus and just all the events over the past couple months, has your image of your perception of the media improved, Show of hands. How many think that your perception of the media's job has improved? And how many would say that it's about the same? Show of hands.
Wow.
And how many would say it's gone down? It's worse than it was before. Okay.